Hey, what's going on, sports fans? Hopefully, you enjoy your day. It's been about a week or so since I've done one of these episodes for you. Past couple streams, I did some gaming stuff, which trust me, that's not going away. I'm definitely going to continue to do those. Um, Had a lot of fun, playing some Madden and all that. But I was just kind of in the mood to do just a regular podcast episode for you guys. But yeah, so let me know how you're doing as you're coming through. You already know. Make sure you drop a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Depending on what platform you're on, would really appreciate it. Have a lot to get into on this episode. I'm going to talk about LeBron and his moment of glory last night. Talk about what that kind of means for him, I guess historically, and all that. What's going on, Dante? Appreciate you stopping by. Um, you know, what should we think about? I guess LeBron in a historical sense with all this. Got to talk about Kyrie Irving as well with trade deadline and all that. Some of the new rumors that are out there, whether or not it's going to be an active trade deadline or if we're gonna kind of see one that's kind of hyped up and ultimately nothing goes on. And oh boy, Jordan in the chat. How come you not? Man, I mean, let me know when you're ready to record, man. It's all good with me. I mean, I know you're joking and all that, but um, yeah. So a lot to get into. It's interesting sports period for us. It's also Super Bowl week, but I think I'll probably save some of that for probably the next episode. Really go heavy into the Super Bowl matchup, but looking at the NBA because, like I said, it's on the main stage with um, LeBron's passing of Kareem and all that. So last night, if you didn't see it, you know, he went into the last night with 35 points, I guess, to tie Kareem, 36 to pass. And, it was a game where he came out early on and you kind of could tell that he was going to get the record last night no matter what. It was pretty efficient and all that. And, he got it on a fadeaway jumper, which, it's kind of become we're synonymous with LeBron. One of the moves that we know him for. I mean, it probably should have happened on like a breakaway dunk. His little trademark tomahawk dunk, but he did it on a fadeaway. Cool. Um, they, yeah, as Dante puts it, they definitely made it know that they were going to make it happen last night by feeding him the ball and all that. And I mean, that's kind of how I feel like most teams probably do that, especially with a guy in their team that's so legendary as LeBron is, that they will kind of do all they can to make it happen, especially with it being at home as well, because ticket prices were crazy, and if it didn't happen last night, there'd have been a lot of fans who probably would have gone home upset by that. And oh, Dante again. LeBron, Russell Westbrook shot the most shots. Anthony Davis only shot 9 shots because they were basically trying to get him the ball. Yeah, and that's kind of the trouble that some teams get into is by doing that, do you stray so far from your game plan that it ultimately costs you in the end? Which I mean, for one night, it is what it is. But the Lakers are in a situation where they kind of need wins. So passing up games like that, really, really isn't in the best interest of the Lakers team. Because actually, I have it ready to go right here. So yeah, so it was a losing effort, lost to the Thunder, 133, 130. And as Dante put in the chat, LeBron got his 20 shots, Westbrook got his 19, Davis got 9 shots. He scored 13, but we also saw that shot of Anthony Davis kind of sitting on the bench when LeBron made the jump shot. Had really no reaction to it or anything like that, and part of that was probably because maybe he was upset by what was going on the court. And there was the reports, because as Dante put it, yeah, Westbrook and Darvin Ham got into a heated argument. I mean, for a coach, especially first year coach at Darvin Ham, it's a tough situation to be put in where, you know, I'm sure he probably would have wanted them to go about it differently. But I also feel like for him, he wanted to kind of get it out of the way. So now when they play, was it, I guess, tomorrow night or whatever, now the LeBron chase is now, it's not over the head of the team. It's not like the main storyline going into the game. Now it's well, trade deadline coming up. It's how do you improve the Lakers? It's can they get out of the bottom of the West, get up into a play-in spot, possibly top six. So now the focus shifts. Now that the chase for Kareem's over. Of course, it's still going to be kind of a probably back story because now that LeBron's past them, it's going to be how many points does he get up to? How much distance can he put between other players? There's going to be a lot of searching the next few days about who could be next in line and all that, which maybe I'll get into that at some point on the show here today. But yeah, it's tough for Darvin Ham. I feel for him. I can understand him being upset by it. Oh, missed your comment here. Coach Darvin Ham called out last night. Anthony Davis wasn't excited; he was upset. And once again, I'm not mad at him because I think after the game they asked him about that and like, what was going through you? Like, why were you visibly upset or whatever? He was like, because I wanted to win. And coming from a guy who, yes, he's called street clothes, he misses games and all that. I kind of don't blame his mentality there because yes, it's cool that LeBron, number one all-time scoring leader, got it. Well, points, but for the rest of the guys, they're trying to make the playoffs here. They can't keep giving away games. They're 25-30. They're 13th in the West. I'll have to pull up the standings here in a second to kind of look at where they are. Because yes, we haven't reached the All-Star break yet, but they've played 55 games. You're coming down to, well, you only have 27 left and not much time to make up the ground they need to make. Now, they shouldn't be in this situation to begin with. When you come into the season, you have LeBron James, you have Russell Westbrook, you have Anthony Davis. You got Dennis Schroeder back, who, a lot of Laker fans were excited for. I mean, that didn't really move the needle for me, but you figure at least with those three, especially with them being top 75 players, that Lakers wouldn't be in this situation. Yes, Anthony Davis had his stints on the injury list, which we kind of know is going to happen. That's just who he is. But with a Western Conference that's wide open, there's no real defined best team in the West necessarily, because if you want to make the argument that Denver's the best team, I could listen to that. If you think it's Memphis, you'd have a valid reason to think that. The Pelicans are up there until Zion got hurt, but I guess if Zion were to come back, since the West, nobody's really running away with it, could they jump back into the fold? Possibly. Clippers have a lot of talent. There's no reason that the Lakers shouldn't be in that conversation. But here we are. 55 games in, they're under 500, and we're celebrating LeBron as the number one all-time points scorer in the NBA. All right, cool. So Dante said, I definitely agree with it. It's cool that LeBron got the record, but at the same time, you're fighting for a playoff spot that may be much bigger than the record. Exactly. And one last thing. As of today, the Lakers not even in the playoffs, and that's frustrating. So I can see why he's upset. Exactly. And he'll probably get roasted on Twitter or whatever because we all know how that goes. I mean, AD is an easy target because of street clothes and all that, but he has a valid reason to be upset. Also, you got to look at it this way: LeBron's been in LA for what 4 or 5 seasons now. Outside of the bubble championship season, it's been kind of a disappointment each year. Now, a lot of Laker fans may not want to hear that because they'll say they got the championship out of it, so whatever. And yes, I mean, I'm not one of those to discredit the championship. I can push back when some people say it's the toughest title or there was this or that. Try to put some, I guess, undeserving adjective against it. Like, yes, they won the title. Cool, they got that. But for this span of him being in LA, where once he got there, a lot of people expected the Lakers to be contending year after year to win multiple championships because they brought in LeBron. Then with LeBron, as they say, he goes places. You're automatically in contention. You're automatically a winner and all that. Hasn't been the case in LA. It just hasn't, and it almost looks like this season is going to be more of the same. They're going to struggle to get into the play-in, most likely, depending on who else is in the play-in tournament. If you're looking at teams like Portland or, I mean, Golden State, I kind of figure will probably get out of that, but there's no guarantee they make it out of the play-in portion. So I don't. It's just a weird place we're in right now. Because I mean I do think some of the fans who were there would have loved to see LeBron pass Kareem with the Lakers like top four. So it's like it means more. This just seems like the this came in a season where hasn't been a lot to celebrate. There's a lot of blame to go around, whether it's the front office for putting this team together, whether it's LeBron himself for, I guess, deciding on Westbrook over Buddy Hield, whatever, however you want to view that. Bringing in Patrick Beverly and trying to sell people that he's a 3 and D type of guy when he's not. The fact they brought back Schroeder, which didn't really solve their issues of shooting. Big men, they don't really have much of. They had Thomas Bryant, but as we saw in this game, Thomas Bryant had 4 points. I mean, Thomas Bryant is a good backup big, but he's not a needle mover to me. He's a high energy guy. I'll give him that. But in terms of shooting, which they needed, scoring, they needed because their scoring right now is LeBron, AD on most nights. Last night was different. Then hopefully, good Westbrook game. If they don't get all three of those, they have no shot of winning. If they get all three of them, they may lose a close game. So it's tough. After LeBron got the record last night, the Oklahoma City Thunder went on a 23-10 run. Defensive effort wasn't there at all. Turnovers. Lakers turned to a complete mess after the record. And I agree with that. It's like the Lakers just stopped playing right after LeBron hit the record. Yeah, because what was kind of lost in the whole thing, because I remember TNT's broadcast, when the game went to the half, they're like, oh man, LeBron's only this much away. They were down by 10, gave up 76 points in the first half. And Laker fans try to tell me earlier in the season that this team was good at defense. I said, no, they're not. Look at it now. They give up like 119 points a game. That's like third worst in the West, probably overall. But that's another issue with this team. The only probably real defender you have Anthony Davis at the rim, Beverly when he's not, you know, getting unnecessary technicals and just hacking people just to prove some point to himself. He's a good perimeter defender. Outside of that, hmm, I mean, the Lakers. There's a lot of issues to fix. I don't know how you do it because this is another issue. If you want to make wholesale changes on this team, how do you do it? Lack of assets is a big issue with the Lakers. You know, with the piece that they're really looking to move is Westbrook, but Westbrook's value's been damaged so much since he's been in LA that if you were to move him, what would you get for him? You would probably get some other team's headache. Some, I mean, I honestly don't even know what you would get. The lack of the assets to get what you fully need on this team, because all year we've been hearing, oh, we'll just get Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. Well, one, Miles Turner has re-upped with Indiana for 2 more years, so I'm assuming that's Indiana showing that they're taking him off the block at least for now. Buddy Hield, I never understood why Indiana would give up on Buddy Hield because of the way that their team is, constituted. You have Halliburton as your ball handler, but the good thing with Halliburton is he's not a ball dominant guy. He's a willing passer. So if you have a willing passer, what do you need? Shooters around him. What's Buddy Hield's one skill? Shooting. So I don't see why Indiana would give that up. Now you're looking at guys like Duncan Robinson, who seems like a couple of years ago was one of the guys in Miami. He fell out of favor real quick. So you're going to trade for that, hoping to recapture what he had a couple of years ago. These are the types of players I think the Lakers could possibly get. But then again, what would you give Miami for Duncan Robinson? A piece you may have to part with might be one of the contributing pieces you have on your team. Now, let me catch up on some comments here. All right, so Coach Dante, a lot of blow-bys to the paint. Russell Westbrook shrewd was turning the ball over, shooting unorthodox thing. Yeah, I mean, it's look, I love Russell Westbrook. I love the mentality of him. I love that he seems to block out all the noise about the issues in his game. He goes out there night after night. He plays with a lot of energy, but he's a limited player. He just is. That's why when Darvin Ham talked about him possibly being like a corner three specialist, I laughed at that. There was no chance of that happening. It's too late in Russell Westbrook's career to all of a sudden turn into this not even great shooter, but like a shooter that you at least have to worry about. Most teams now, late game situations, they sag off of Westbrook and dare him to shoot it. He'll hit a three here or there, but no team really overreacts to that. I mean, last night he went 4 for 7 from three. Games like that, you better win because those are few and far between. So they wasted a good Westbrook game as well last night. 27 with 8, 4, 10 of 19 shooting, 4 of 7 from three. You'll take that, but you still lost though. So it's let's see. Lakers don't want to come off the first round picks either. If you're trying to win now, win the championship like you did in the bubble, is the first round picks really worth it? True. Yeah, they went all in to get this group together with the sense of winning multiple championships, and it looks like the bubble one might be the only one they get out of this group, which then poses the problem that once LeBron leaves in a couple of years, because I'm assuming LeBron's not going to play 5 to 7 more years in LA. So once he moves out, I believe they don't have first round picks until 27, I think. So post LeBron doesn't even look that bright. I don't know. Now I guess the qualifier would be I'm not a Lakers fan. I'm a Celtics fan. I just want to be honest with you. So maybe this is coming across as a Celtics fan hating on the hated Lakers. But seems like, Coach Dante here in the chat, who's over on Sports Empire Never. Let me say that, by the way, because that's where you also find me if I'm not on my channel, of course. I'm over there with the, guys like Dante and others. So make sure you go over there as well, subscribe to their channel, because one, like I said, I'm on there Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, but there's play by plays, other great shows over there as well. So make sure you do that. I just want to say that. But yeah, NBA first round picks not even lottery protected, and I don't want to come off of them. That's facts. It's a sticky situation. Now, this is a situation that we've seen before because you already know when you're acquiring LeBron that the young players that you probably do have will probably get moved because he's in win now mentality at this point in his career, not really wanting to wait 3-4 years for young guys to develop and catch up with him, which is all good and dandy, but when he moves on, it's how does the team rebuild from all of that? Because like I said, I think even going into next year, now if Westbrook comes off the books, which he probably will, that's what, 34 million. The only guys under contract for next year, let's see, is LeBron, I think AD, I think maybe Brown Jr., and maybe another guy. So with Westbrook's 34 million coming off the books, you only have four guys under contract. You have to fill out a roster with that 34 million, unless you want to go over it, getting the luxury tax and all that, which you want to do all that for a team that probably isn't going to compete for a title next year either. Once again, that's the situation the Lakers have found themselves in. Yeah, we definitely see that with Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, even though he can't stay on the court. Zion Williamson, they turn to legit stars. That's the problem. Right. So for the one title, Laker fans have to remember you had to give away Ingram, Kuzma, Hart, Ball because you wanted Anthony Davis. Even though going into LA, we already knew Anthony Davis was getting hurt a lot. He's played, I believe, more than 70 games twice in his career. That was like 6-7 years ago. Since then, you're lucky to get 60 games out of him. Now, Laker fans will be surprised at him being hurt all the time. Like with big men, when it comes to lower body injuries, once you start having them, you don't just all of a sudden become healthy. Kind of lingers with you. And Zion Williamson was the first overall pick that they traded that the Lakers actually had in the Anthony Davis deal. Okay, yeah, so that's why you added Williamson into that list. Okay, yeah. I mean, that's not even a fact I even thought about, but yeah, you got to think about that now, Lakers fans. So you could have had LeBron and a young Zion along with, I guess, Ingram, Kuzma, those guys, versus what you have now in LeBron, AD. Well, I guess we'll throw Westbrook in there. You tell me which team you would rather have, not only for today, but going forward. Now, of course, with all of those young guys together, you'd probably run into issues of certain guys needing to be extended. Would it cost you other guys? But even if that's the case, you could have clearly hitched your future to, well, at least the next couple of years, like LeBron, Zion, say Brandon Ingram. If those are the three that you made the core, maybe you move on from Kuzma, Hart, Lonzo Ball anyway. I would still take LeBron, Zion, and Brandon Ingram right now. Brandon Ingram got better once he left LA. I felt so bad for Brandon Ingram that year when he got traded away. because everybody knew he was going to get moved and he'd go into like opposing arenas and hearing like LeBron doesn't want you and all this kind of stuff. Felt bad for him. Happy that he's in New Orleans doing better. I mean, Kuzma was a like he was blamed for like everything in LA when he was there. People didn't think he was developing quick enough or whatever. Look at him in Washington. Looks like a rotation player to me. Josh Hart. I mean, Josh Hart's been like he's a productive backup guard. I mean, Lakers lack depth as well, so Hart would definitely have been a key piece on this team. But Lonzo, we know he can't stay healthy. I don't know what's going on there. It's almost getting to the point where he might be one of those players where maybe came in with some promise, but injuries ultimately might end up writing the story for him instead of what his talent might have done, if that makes sense. But either way, Lonzo at least is a ball handling playmaker. Now the fact of Lonzo, was being compared to like Steph Curry or something for his range and all that, I always thought that was crazy. But you break Lonzo Ball down to minimum, he gives you ball handling, defense. Lakers would love to have that now. I feel bad for everybody that played on their team. LeBron want them out, and every time they go to a road game, yeah, like it was. I felt bad for him, especially as young players too. That's not exactly what you want to hear when you're playing with somebody like a LeBron. And those young players literally gave up on LeBron, and now Brandon turned into an all-star. Zion wants to stay healthy. He's an all-star. Josh Hart is a great role player. Yep. But Laker fans will tell me it was worth it for the bubble title. I guess. Kuzma is a 20 points per game scorer. Lonzo Ball is basically a playmaker and turns into a great. Yeah, I will say, yeah, Lonzo did get better from three once he tweaked his shooting motion, which I always thought was going to be the biggest issue. But I give him credit for that. He worked on it, and he did become a better three-point shooter for sure. Um, so it's weird because I guess going back to LeBron, where I kind of started with this, like the whole night felt different because there was an understanding he was going to break the record. I get it. I mean, I did throw out there over on Sports Empire Network for the big three that I could see him scoring like 30 and then needing the extra six against the Bucks. But he got it done last night. I am interested to see though, will he play against the Bucks now that he's gotten the record? Because there was talk like late in the fourth that like he'd hurt his right leg or something, which to be honest with you, I'm not buying that either. Because right after the game, he seemed to get over to uh, the TNT guys real quick to do an interview. I don't know, you tell me. But it was cool seeing Kareem there in the building. That's cool. Even though I think Kareem's gotten some hate from LeBron fans or something like that, but it was cool having him there. I guess passing of the mantle or whatever you want to call it. But I guess last thing I'll say about LeBron before I move on here, a lot of people are going to sit there and say that now that he's the scoring champion, he's definitely the GOAT. Not to me. Because, yes, he scored the most points in the NBA history. What does that tell us? It tells us he's played a long time, which is a credit to LeBron. You know, that's that is a big part of being an athlete, taking care of your body, and we know that he does that. Facts, let them know, Kyle. Not to me. I still got Jordan's my goat. Jordan's still my goat too. You know, he's a scoring the points leader, so he's played longer than anybody in forever. I mean, Kareem played until what he was 40, like 45 when he finally hung it up. Of course, it was a different era. He's a low post guy, so yeah. I mean, that's was an astounding feat in itself that he led. The points was he was the points leader for so long. But yes, the points record for LeBron, it's just an it's just the feather in the cap to him taking care of his body for as long as he has. Give him credit for that. Why it doesn't make him the GOAT for me is if you look at points per game, which I think is a good way to evaluate players, he doesn't have the highest scoring average. So you can't say he's the best scorer in league history then. Once again, that's just to me. I believe Jordan averaged about 30, little over 30 points a game his whole career. I think LeBron averages like 27 and a half, which is not something to laugh at, of course, but that's a good way to compare both guys. Because yes, I mean Jordan played like 13 years, which another variable in all this is LeBron. I mean LeBron didn't go to college, so he got started with his NBA career faster. Jordan played 3 years at UNC. Minor detail in all this, Jordan did miss was his second year with the broken foot. That was a year taken away, so that's 4 years right there. The 2 years for baseball and all the other stuff. I mean, if you added those years onto Jordan's career, which I'm not saying you have to or anything like that, but who knows where Jordan would have ended up. So that's one thing. I mean, the second thing, I still have Jordan as the GOAT because of just strictly eye test. If you compare the two of them, I would say Jordan's the better scorer. So that's one end of the floor. But I'd also tell you Jordan's the better defender. So if he's the better scorer and the better defender, that's both sides of the court. How would he not be the GOAT over LeBron? Now, that's not to say, LeBron's a bad defender. I do think LeBron's a better like off-ball help defender than necessarily on the ball. Whereas Jordan was great off the ball, on the ball, just better all around to me. Once again, this is all according to me. So if you feel otherwise, you're more than welcome to jump in the chat like Coach Dante has and let me know. But that's probably the biggest reason that I would still have Jordan over LeBron. But then you can go to some of the intangibles. The Jordan mentality, which I guess later became Mamba mentality because we know like Kobe idolized Jordan. It took everything that Jordan did, he ran with it, which is one of the reasons. I mean, yes, Kobe played for the Lakers. Hard for me to root for any Lakers like that, but I always found Kobe's mentality fascinating to me because when you look at Jordan, it takes a special breed of athlete to play the game with the mentality Jordan had. You've seen the documentaries on him. We saw Last Dance and all that. With reporters would talk about how Jordan would literally just make up reasons to hate the guy guarding him, just to give himself motivation, even though the guy who's probably guarding him is a lesser player. But that's just the way he was wired. He had to have that mentality going into the game because that's when he was at his most dangerous. So that is another reason. That probably works into what some people might say clutch gene or whatever. I don't know. But for me, as somebody who, like, when Jordan came into the league, that was literally my childhood. So that's when I started watching the NBA. So I've been able to see Jordan, then see LeBron. So it's easier for me to kind of make the comparison. A lot of my issue, not all LeBron, I guess LeBron GOAT fans, because a lot of them are kind of the younger generation, which I get, because LeBron to them is like Jordan to my generation. Clearly the best player, that we saw while we were watching NBA. But what we'll get is a lot of them will put LeBron up there, but then if you ask them about Jordan, they don't really know much about his game or anything like that, or didn't really see him play. And that's where I kind of have the issue when having this conversation. Although, oh, here we go. Michael Jordan was a 9-time All Defensive Player. That's more than Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen's another guy who, through all of this debate, has been thrown into it a lot, and because a lot of ways that people try to downgrade Jordan is, well, he's never won with anybody other than Scottie Pippen. Yeah, I get that. But if you did see those documentaries as well, you ask Jordan about it, Jordan will tell you he needed Scottie Pippen. He's not ashamed to say that. But that also doesn't take away from the greatness of Jordan. Because if you look at LeBron, look at LeBron's championship winning teams. Let's stop acting like LeBron won those championships with a bunch of Thomas Bryant's on his team. No, he's won with great players himself. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love. And if you don't think Kevin Love was a great player, check him out in Minnesota before he got to Cleveland. He was a walking 20 and 10 guy every night. So both of them played with great players. I mean, Jordan, the greatest player he played with was Pippen, with the same Chicago Bulls organization. Hold on. Don't want to miss too many of these. Michael Jordan played against the great defenses of all time, Celtics, Pistons that hit it. That's facts. Once again, Dante, I appreciate you in the chat because these are points I bring up when I talk with a lot of people who are on the opposite side of this debate. Because, like I said, just because you may want to build up LeBron doesn't mean you have to completely trash Jordan. Because a lot of times if you start doing that, to some, kind of comes across as like completely biased and you just never want to change your opinion. And I get that. Let's see. Facts. LeBron didn't win a championship until he teamed up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. They both were top 5 at the position at the time. Once again, facts. Even though for some reason it seemed like Chris Bosh, like a lot of people want to make it seem like Chris Bosh was a lesser player until he got with LeBron. Once again, check out Chris Bosh in Toronto. Chris Bosh was an all-around player. He was another guy who was like a walking 2010 type of guy. He was the best player on a few of those Raptors teams. Of course, the Raptors didn't, do a lot while he was there, but he was another great player. Let's see. Then you want to say Utah Jazz, Stockton and Malone with old. They won 67 games both years. They were not old. They were in their, once again, that speaks to another part I was about to come up with. This notion that LeBron's faced way tougher competition than Jordan, we need to stop that narrative as well. Dante just talked about the Jazz teams. Those Jazz teams were probably the best teams in the West a lot of those years. Stockton and Malone, we all know about those two. But they're also like really well-built organizations. Jerry Sloan, great coach. So the Utah at that time was kind of like the model organization in terms of organization, roster building, because they had guys outside of those two who filled their role and fed off of those two really well. Dante brings up another team in Portland when they had Drexler. Once again, it was a team that maybe now through history didn't have a lot of guys you necessarily remember, I guess. But Drexler, yes, Dante put here Terry Porter. They had Duckworth, who was a big man. Duckworth was a solid 5-man in the league. They also had well-built teams. This is my team that Dante brought up here. the Sonics. Those Sonics teams in Jordan's era, they probably deserved a championship or two. Kemp, Peyton, McMillan, um, Schrempf. They had Sam Perkins a few of those years. Sam Perkins was, well, at least for me watching, he was like the originator of big man stretching the floor. So there's a lot of great teams that Jordan's Bulls kept from winning titles. Because there's even more than Dante's name. There's the Barkley Suns teams. Those teams were legit. Barkley, Kevin Johnson, Dan Marley, Danny Ainge. You know, who am I missing on those teams? Well, that was like the big four for those teams. Oh, they had Hornacek too. I mean, I can't forget Hornacek. There were, well, the Rockets teams that did finally break through when Jordan retired. Hakeem, Kenny Smith, Mario Elie, um, Vernon Maxwell, who was a madman, but he could ball. Robert Ory. So the teams back then were, they weren't top heavy like a lot of teams are today. They were their rosters were built out with quality players. Spurs, whoever you want to name back then. This point here as well. The East was tougher, stronger. The Hornets, you had Larry Johnson, Lonzo Mourning. You had Muggsy Bogues. I think it was like an underrated point guard. I loved watching Muggsy Bogues play. You had, I know Del Curry was in there a few years. Uh, yeah, bringing up the Cavs. We all know about that jump shot over with Craig Elo, but they had years with Mark Price, Brad Daugherty, Larry Nance. Um, I mean, Elo, for that one clip, Elo was actually a pretty good player. I mean, just saying, the Hawks, yeah, Mookie Blaylock. Well, yeah, you put in there Dominique Wilkins. Um, let me see who else. Mookie Blaylock. They had what, Matumbo, Steve Smith. Steve Smith and Jordan had great battles against each other. So yeah, that was another thing too, because a lot of people bring up, yeah, they were physical, because Dante put in a comment earlier on Jordan's early years, which a lot of LeBron fans like to bring up. Well, Jordan struggled so early on in his career. Yeah, because when Jordan was coming to the league, the Celtics ran the league. And once the Celtics got too old, the Pistons ran the league. And Jordan took his lumps against those teams. He came into the league as like a skinny wing player. I believe he said himself that once the Pistons series happened, the book on Jordan, or what the Jordan rules, what I think Rodman and those guys had, which the rule basically was Jordan came into the lane, you put him on his butt, you made him shoot free throws. And because of that, he transformed his body. He got a little bit bigger. And then once he finally got past the Celtics, the Pistons, that's when he went on his run in the East. Those are all-time great defenses. Michael Jordan's playing against the '85 Celtics team is probably the greatest defensive all team with Robert Parrish. Yep. I mean, I may have to do an episode or something talking about Larry Bird one day, because I think Larry Bird's another guy who, throughout history, I don't know, the way people remember him is a little different, but yeah, '80 Celtics, Parrish, Bird, Cale, Dennis Johnson. I mean, Danny Ainge was in that group as well. Like, those '80 Celtics teams were stacked. Like I said, it was only once they got a little older, because we know Bird, with his back injuries and all that, his prime wasn't as long as probably I would have liked, especially as a Celtics fan. Where once I started getting into basketball, that was like the very end of Bird's career. And Bird was still good. It was just that his back was it was shot by then. because you would see Bird get on the court. Then when he got off the court, he would be laying down by the bench because he just had to stretch out. His back was just that bad at that point. Let's see, because they beat my Rockets in '84 finals, and the team was really stacked up. Thing was good. Yep, yeah, that was the Rockets team with was it a young Elijah one when he went by Akeem, not Hakeem. Ralph Sampson, Twin Towers. Yeah, that was the good Rockets team too. I think that was that their only shot at the finals with those two? I think. But the same way those Celtics teams kept a lot of great teams from winning titles. Jordan's Bulls did the same thing. I mean, it's tough enough to win a title in the NBA. Jordan did a three-peat, and not only one three-peat, he did two of them, sandwiched around the couple of years that he missed from baseball and all that other stuff. So, look, I guess to round this all up before I move on to trade deadline or whatever, is LeBron a great player? Yes, we can all say that. Is he the greatest? No. Now, for me, I've always said for the GOAT conversation, the if you want to treat it as like a VIP room, is LeBron invited into the VIP room? Yeah, he just wouldn't be sitting at the end of the table as like the guy, but he's allowed in the room. Because I think the conversation, if you want to have it, there's only certain names you could really throw out there. If you want to throw LeBron, like I said, you can do that. Kareem absolutely has to be in the room. For me, I think because this is another guy where I feel like there's differing opinions on Bill Russell. He won as a player, won as a player coach. I think one title as a coach. He had 11. We'll never see an NBA athlete with 11 rings. Never. And I don't care that it was a smaller league back then, whatever. For for Bill Russell be that successful back in a time where it wasn't the easiest for a black athlete. Like I said, born and raised in Boston, I understand Boston's history. So I understand the real struggle Bill Russell went through while playing. I think you have to put that as part of his case to deal with all that, be as great as he was. I feel like he's in the conversation. You want to throw Wilt Chamberlain in there? What's that, 4? I don't know. I'm sure there's other names I'm missing, but it's not a conversation that a lot of people should be involved in. So I think for LeBron fans, like for me, once again, as a Jordan guy, I can acknowledge that LeBron can make a case for the greatest, but I can just tell you that if you want to throw Jordan versus LeBron, Jordan to me just beats him every day of the week to me. Because then the other question I get asked a lot is, so for me being set on Jordan, is there anything LeBron could do to pass Jordan? And for me, no, because what I feel like he would probably have to do, I don't know if he has enough time to do it. He's 38. He has to be really careful with the games and the amount of games he plays every season. The Lakers squad as it is right now, I just don't know if he can ultimately do enough for me to pass Jordan. But that's the last comment from Dante. Basically, Ralph Sampson and Hakeem. Yeah. So that's kind of where I stand on LeBron and everything. What's cool seeing him break it. Once again, over on Sports Empire Network for the Big Three, we actually were talking about how we saw him breaking the record, like what kind of play it would be. And I guess I'll give Jordan credit for this. He said he kind of called fadeaway, and that's the play that did it for him, was a fadeaway. So, but yeah, like I said, there's other things I want to get into. Hold on a second. Yes, I talked about the AD thing. I mean, yes, he's getting talked about a lot for not, I guess, acknowledging the moment. But as he said at the end of the game, he was just upset that they were losing, and then ultimately that they lost the game. But now I want to talk about a former teammate of LeBron, Kyrie Irving. So let me get this off here. Kyrie Irving was traded for, well, traded with Markieff Morris to the Mavericks for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, I believe a first round pick in like 29, two second round picks as well. I think this is an interesting situation because, as we know, Kyrie made the trade demand after the loss to the Celtics. I mean, the blowout loss to the Celtics. He then came out with the trade request. I did wonder if the timing wasn't going to be right in order to get the trade, to happen, because it was really for him to make a trade request for the money he's making and all that, the profile player that he is. Usually teams need some time to get a package together to trade a guy like that. The fact that Brooklyn and Dallas put it together so quickly kind of shows me that the Nets had gotten to the point where they just had to move. They just had to. They just had to move on from him. And can you say that you're really mad, that they got to that point? No, not really. Because even Kyrie said it in his first, I guess, appearance with the Mavericks that it was a tough time in Brooklyn, which I agree with. Whether it was the sweep at the hands of the Celtics, which had to really kill him because that was his former team. He didn't like the fact that they kind of booed him out of town. That was his opportunity in the playoff series to um, kind of get back at them. But what happened? He was playing, getting into it with the crowd when they were up. Tatum hit the buzzer beater, and then from that moment on, he was done with that series. I felt like that was the last straw for the front office, but I think they gave him a chance. I guess because if you remember the offseason, Durant was kind of upset that they didn't give Kyrie an extension. Front office clearly made it known that they weren't going to do that. So I don't think there was ever a situation where I saw Kyrie sticking it out in Brooklyn for an extended period of time. Throw in there the Harden situation, Ben Simmons, all that. Yeah. Brooklyn at this point, it seems like a team without a direction, and maybe Kyrie moving on was the front office trying to gain some control of the situation. I don't know. But they pull it off. Now there's questions about KD. Is he the next one to go? So the way I look at it is, I think with the pieces they brought back, plus the fact that Cam Thomas has been going off since Kyrie's departure, is Brooklyn good enough to win the East this year? Probably not. I don't think this current team could beat Boston, Milwaukee, Philly, even Cleveland. But I don't know if it's a team that necessarily couldn't win next year. And they did say that, you know, KD's meeting with the Nets brass to kind of see their direction. So I guess if later today or something we get like an official trade request, then we'll understand that that meeting probably didn't go well. But I think what Brooklyn can probably convince KD is that, look, we have the rest of this year with these guys. Let's see how far we can go, reevaluate in the offseason, make whatever move necessary, and then kind of give it next year. Like if they go into next year, it's an utter disaster. They've taken further steps back, they're sitting there in like 6, 7, 8 spot. Then maybe Brooklyn revisits the whole maybe we just need to trade KD, see what we can get. I think for right now, I don't expect KD to go. I know there was the rumors about, well, I think what Stephen A said on First Take, he's here and there could be movement or whatever in Boston is involved, which once again was just bringing up the old rumor of, KD for Jalen Brown. Whatever. As a Celtics fan, I like the Jason Tatum Jalen Brown duo. I think they work well together, even though there was questions about that earlier on in their pairing. But it seems like if you look at them now, they've matured as a duo, and I think they'd be better off keeping it together. Only way I would be down for Katie for JB is if Brad Stevens or Joe Mazzulla or whatever, if they talk to Jalen Brown and they got the impression from him that he's not going to re-sign or sign an extension or anything like that, and he plans on leaving, fine. Knock yourself out. Go ahead and make the deal. Least, at least in that, I can understand it. But let's say Jalen Brown's given him every indication that he's willing to sign long term, because we know Tatum did what last year. So let's say Brown does it this offseason, you'd have the two of them together for another at least 4 years or something like that. Then I don't see the point in doing that for Durant, who's what, 35. And I can't necessarily say 3 4 years down the line that KD looks the same as a player. I also couldn't guarantee that you have KD, Jason Tatum. So now Jalen Brown's out of the picture. So I guess you go Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White, Marcus Smart, Grant Williams is the guy that they make a decision on. But let's just say with Brown gone, Durant in, they re-sign Grant Williams. Is there a guarantee that team wins a title anyway? I think it's an honest question. Because, yes, Tatum has definitely taken his game to another level. KD is KD. We know who KD is when he's on the court. He's hurt now. I believe he's out for the All-Star game. But same way that there's no guarantee, Tatum and Brown win a title, but I'd rather bank on the young guys with the chemistry than splitting them up. Who's to say Durant and Tatum would have the on-court chemistry that Tatum and Brown have? I mean, I think they would, but it's not a guarantee. So let's say you make the deal, you bring Durant in, Durant and Tatum don't play well, and the team takes a step back. Then what do? So I'd say leave it together, make, at least for the Celtics point, make deals kind of towards the outer edges of the rotation. Whether that's maybe trading to Grant Williams or Payne Pritchard or something like that to get, whether it's, I don't know, Jakob Pertl or whatever. Just another big guy, because with Horford getting up there in age, Rob Williams coming back from the injury, outside of that, big man depth is a problem. But I guess to get back on the Nets here, I actually think if you look at the Nets team, it's not a terrible squad. The only thing is, you know, they don't have, I guess, the big names that they had. Kyrie, Harden. I mean, they still have Ben Simmons, but we know about Ben Simmons at this point. He's just a guy who kind of seems like he's good in terms of where he is in his development. He still hasn't developed a jump shot. His free throw shooting still terrible, but he plays defense. He's a big point guard. Hey, can you make it work with him? I guess. You just have to take the frustrations as they come. But let's see if I can pull up the current roster for them. I know there's some names I'm missing. in terms of who's on the team. All right, yes, I got it here. Hold on, I'll pull it up. Just to kind of make my point about, probably convincing Durant that it probably makes more sense to stick around. Hold on a second. Yeah, so here we go. All right. So you have Nick Claxton, who serviceable big man. Is he Jokic? Is he Embiid? No, but he has a skill set. He's a rim protector. He runs the floor. He can get offensive rebounds, putbacks, that kind of stuff. Seth Curry is an elite 3-point shooter. That's definitely something to build off of. Dinwiddie, now hopefully for Brooklyn's sake, Dinwiddie goes back to the form he had when he was in Brooklyn before they moved on from him, I guess, to make room for, was it? Yeah, Kyrie, I think. If they get that, that's a plus. Uh, David Duke Jr., I don't know much about him. Durant, okay. Dorian Finney-Smith, I think it was a great get from Dallas because he's a wing defender. And when you're talking about the East, you can never have too many of them because look at the top teams in the East. Boston, you're dealing with Tatum and Brown. On top of that, Brogdon. Uh, yeah, we'll stick with those three. If you look at Milwaukee, you're looking at Middleton. You're looking at, um, I wouldn't say Giannis because you wouldn't put Finney Smith on Giannis, but Middleton, Holiday, Connaughton, those guys. Okay. If you look at Philly, you're talking about Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris if he's having a good game, James Harden. So perimeter defenders are at a premium in the East. You got yourself another one in Dorian Finney-Smith. And Finney-Smith can also knock down the three as well. So I think that's a plus. Joe Harris, Patty Mills, those are your knockdown 3-point shooters. Royce O'Neal, who is basically in the Finney-Smith mold. So I wonder, now that they brought in Finney-Smith, do they keep Royce O'Neal around, or is he a guy who might get moved trade deadline? I mean, they'll probably keep both of them because, like I said, you can never have too many perimeter defenders. Ben Simmons, like we said, if Ben Simmons has his head on straight, fine. It's still wild to me that Ben Simmons is at $35 million a year. I mean, that might go down as one of the worst contracts, but anyway. Cam Thomas, like I said, he was a cheap option. He's only 21. He's only making a slightly above $2 million a year. He'll probably be the key to all of this. If Cam Thomas keeps up this, obviously not the 40 points a game, but if he can keep this production up where he's like a guaranteed 20-point scorer, that's a plus. TJ Warren, if he gets back to his bubble form, plus. Watanabe, lethal 3-point shooter. So it's not a bad team. Maybe you package a couple of them, get another guy in there. I feel like it should be some optimism in terms of Durant. Yes, his boy Kyrie's gone, but you're not completely left with an empty cupboard in Brooklyn. So I think it's right for Joe Tsai and them to come out and say they don't have plans on trading Durant. That's not to say he wouldn't get traded, because let's say Phoenix or somebody comes up with some crazy package for him. Brooklyn would think about it. You'd have to. That's kind of your job as the front office. So, yeah, I think KD stays. Kyrie, I want to see. I believe his first game is tonight with the Mavericks. So it'll be he and Luka. I believe they're going up against the Clippers. I will definitely be tuning into that game to see how Kyrie and Luka work on the court together. I think it's going to work only because, Kyrie, he played with Durant, who's another guy who's high profile, high, um, I guess, efficiency scorer types, and a guy who kind of needs the ball in his hands to do work. Luka's the same way. So I don't have an issue there. I think Jason Kidd will be able to make that happen. But, you know, it, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, so now with the trade deadline and all that, will it be an active trade deadline or not? And I think that's a legit question to ask because I think there's a lot of rumors of players getting moved, but I do wonder what we'll actually get because we know John Collins is on the block. He's always on the block in Atlanta. It is whether or not Atlanta actually pulls the trigger on a trade to actually move him. You know, because I don't know if they will. Like I said, we've been down here before, been down this road where he's on the block, but then ultimately they keep him, and it's just like whatever. So if he gets moved, fine. I think it needs to happen. Atlanta Atlanta just has to make it happen with him. I can't go into another year where it's like, oh, coming into the season, John Collins, will he get moved or not? Just do it. That's all I say. So, um, he's the guy you'll probably hear about over the next couple of days. Because, like I said, trade deadline is now what about 23 hours away. Um, Cam Reddish is a guy that seems to constantly be in trade rumors because no team can really seem to figure out what to do with him, how to get the talent out of him. He's been Atlanta, he's been New York now. He's kind of fallen out of rotation in New York, so he's got to go. I think we saw what Duncan Robinson's available, which I talked about with the Lakers real quick. I mean, real quick earlier on. He's a guy who's fallen out of favor in Miami. You could probably throw Kyle Lowry into that with Miami because I feel like Kyle Lowry, that experiment in Miami's probably run its course. Westbrook in LA. I mean, that's been a thing for more than a year now. Like I said, KD, just because the Nets said they're not going to trade KD, I'm not going to necessarily pull him off of the trade block. I think he could still get moved. But I feel like there's a lot of teams out there who probably have pieces that, if they were to make available, could make for an interesting trade deadline. One team I want to talk about real quickly is the Raptors. The Raptors are a team that's, I guess, currently sitting outside of the playoff picture, and because of that, I feel like they're a team that should probably get a little active this trade deadline because they have pieces that probably should get moved. I'm looking at Fred VanVleet, who he had like one stellar year for them, spun that into a big contract. But what's he really done since then? And I think that's an issue for the Raptors. Uh, bring the standings up here. Yeah. So the Raptors are sitting there below the play-in line, and they have a roster of Van Vliet. You have OG Anunoby. You have Scotty Barnes. You have Gary Trent Jr., Pascal Siakam, um, Chris Boucher. Should you be 25 and 30? No. Nick Nurse, for all I've been told, is a really good coach. I'm not. I can't really stand his antics and constant complaining, but he was the coach when they won with Kawhi. I think that team needs to, I guess, push the trade button on some of these guys. And I think the names that are kind of being thrown around are Van Vliet, OG, and Gary Trent Jr. if those three were to get moved, I think they could contribute in other places in the NBA. It's just that Toronto is just not happening. Will the Warriors make a deal? Because let me go to the Western Conference here. The Warriors, after a really slow start, they found themselves up in seventh, but kind of what we saw early in the year, it just seems like they're missing something. Now, I think James Wiseman has put in a trade request, which, to be honest with you, seems kind of laughable to me. Because I did like the pick when they made it, but he hasn't really contributed anything to Golden State. So maybe there's some frustration on his side because to him, he feels like he can be more of a contributor. And for whatever reason, it's just not happening in Golden State. So for his career being still in the early stages, I think for him mentally, he probably thinks if he goes somewhere else, maybe he hits like a soft reset on his career, can possibly help it. So maybe that's the guy who gets moved. I don't know what they bring back, but I mean, the couple of times I've seen the Warriors play, as well, especially with Steph being hurt, like, I mean, you see a team where Thompson, who's still kind of battling back from the 2 years that he missed with all his knee injuries, and he's not the same. Draymond Green, he is what he is at this point. But when you don't have Steph on the court, you kind of need Draymond to do more, and there's only so much he can do. Kuminga was a young guy they brought in as hopefully to probably find his way into the main rotation, and then when some of these guys move on, be a part of the future. I can't say I've been impressed by Kuminga. So I don't know. The Warriors have flaws for sure. It's just a matter of how much of that can Steph Curry and his ability cover up. So I kind of expect them to make some type of move because, as I mentioned earlier, yes, the West is open, but Denver seems like they will kind of be in the race till the end. Memphis the same way. The Kings are intriguing to me. I'm shocked they're still up in third. I know they got off to a really great start, but it's the Kings. The Kings aren't supposed to be good. I mean, I remember the Kings when they were good with like Jason Williams or Mike Bibby and Chris Webber. That group, Page and Stojakovic, which, I mean, going back to the Jordan thing, that's another team that probably should have won a title or something. At least make a finals at least. But the Kings are good this year. Clippers, well, I think if this is 2K, you have injuries off, Clippers might be the most talented team in the West. They just have a lot of question marks. John Wall, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. Can those three stay healthy when it matters most in the playoffs in June? If they can, Clippers factor into the West. Phoenix they kind of bottomed out a couple of weeks ago, but they slowly gone back up into the top six. I'm still not sold on Phoenix. The Chris Paul, the way that he's aging, Booker's missed some time, so we'll have to see. Booker's back now. We'll see what Phoenix looks like, but if you're gonna tell me Golden State, if they didn't make a little minor move to bring in another person, another guy to contribute to their like top eight, that they couldn't benefit from that, I think they definitely could. Pelicans, who had a really good start to the year, Zion got hurt. They fell off. So for the Warriors, they got to look around and see, this is, yes, a wide open year, but it's not like a year that if they just sit back and try to turn on late, that they'll just necessarily blow through this Western Conference. So I think they're a team that probably makes a move. And I actually just got an alert here about some trade buzz. So let me pull that up, talk about that real quick, and then yeah, we'll probably call it an episode. But um, let's go to that real quick because hopefully the little alert I got is on here, so we can talk about that. I think it's some three-team deal that might be worked out. Yeah, it's on here, so this is good. This is good. So Laker fans, you'll probably appreciate this if I can fix the window here. Hold on. Okay, that's too much. Let's see. All right, yeah. So here's this three-team deal that's apparently being worked on. Yeah, Lakers, Jazz, and the Timberwolves. Three-team deal. Utah was a team that, with Danny Ainge there, you know he's not going to sit out a trade deadline. That's a given. So it looks like got something working here. So it says D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley to the Lakers, Conley and picks to Minnesota, Westbrook picks to Utah. Hmm. Jazz also exploring Conley Jr. elsewhere. Jared Vanderbilt, Detroit's Boyan Bogdanovich remain players coveted by the Lakers. That's an interesting move, you know. So the Lakers would get D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley. I mean, once again, D'Angelo Russell's a guy that they had. He moved on. I mean, Russell would give them kind of a perimeter guy, another ball handler. I mean, if you were a Laker fan, you'd probably be okay with this. Because yeah, you move off of Westbrook and you get D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley. Okay. Now, when I first read this, I kind of thought Mike Conley Jr. might be going to the Lakers. Cause I just feel like that was the guy who probably um, would get placed there, but it looks like he'd go to Minnesota, so he'd be basically replacing D'Angelo Russell. Conley would be that facilitator for Anthony Edwards, Carl Anthony Towns when he comes back. So I see that. I see that working for them as well. Now Westbrook in Utah is interesting because one question I did wonder about Westbrook was, is he a guy you'd put around young players and I guess feel okay with it? And that's kind of more of, would Westbrook want that at this point in his career? That would be interesting too. Westbrook, Markkinen, Kessler. That's interesting. So we'll have to see if this one goes through. So all right, it looks like this, you know. All right, so it looks like we might actually have an interesting trade deadline after all. Oh wait, it says here Westbrook does get traded to Utah, he would likely receive a buyout. Interesting there as well. So if he were bought out, where would so then Westbrook would kind of be free to sign anywhere, like a veteran minimum deal. I wonder where Westbrook would go then. That's interesting. We'll see if it gets done. Um, Hawks struggling to find a deal for Collins, which I mean, I've asked the question several times. Did the Hawks actually miss the boat on trading him? Because the longer he stayed in Atlanta, the lower his value has gotten because his game has gotten worse. And we've established that he and Trae Young seemingly can't play well together. And from talking to people, I guess off stream, obviously, but I've wondered, would Atlanta entertain moving Trae Young and seeing if Collins and DeJounte Murray could do something? Because I really like DeJounte Murray. I don't think Atlanta would ever do it because Atlanta's kind of tied themselves to Trey Young as being the guy. I don't know if, with the Hawks organization, they're not one to really, I guess, want to anger the fans necessarily in trading away a fan favorite like a Trey Young. So if they're struggling to find like a partner for John Collins, are they going to have to maybe bite the bullet and take 20 cents on the dollar for him? And by that, not saying John Collins is like some great player or something, but whatever their demands are, they may have to pull back on it a lot to finally move them. So if they do end up trading it, it may be a package that if we look at it, be like, that's all they got. Van Vliet, yeah, I already talked about that. That's who Toronto's kind of making available. Yeah, talking about Durant, blah 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 blah. So yeah. So in terms of the latest buzz, it looks like this three-team deal with the Lakers, Utah, Minnesota might be. Maybe that's a move that probably sets off the trade deadline, but that's interesting. Definitely let me know what you would think about that. Like, if you are a fan of one of the three teams, Lakers, Jazz, and Timberwolves, would you like to see that move happen? But trying to see if there's anything else I want to talk about. We could talk about the All Star game real quick. To be honest with you, I kind of wait on that. Yeah, I'll probably do that for another episode. Talk about the All Star game rosters because there's some movement that has to happen with that as well. So I'll just wait for that to be finalized because now Kyrie, who was a starter for the East, is now in the West. Steph Curry looks like he might miss the All Star game, so I guess Kyrie becomes a starter in the West because of that. Then I guess you probably elevate Jalen Brown to that starter spot in the East, who then gets Jalen Brown's spot as the East reserve. I think I saw as well Durant might miss the All Star game, so then who moves up from the East there? Who gets that spot? So I'll just wait until all that's finalized and talk about the All Star game as well as the festivities around the All Star game, slam dunk, 3-point contest, and all that. So I'll save that. But yeah, really enjoyed the stream. You know, saw a few people pop in. Coach Dante, was really active in the chat. Appreciate that as well. Boy Jordan was here in the chat early on. So, appreciate you guys tuning in. Like I said, it's been about a week and a half between the episodes. I was, doing the whole gaming streams on the channel, which, like I said, will continue. But now I'm going to get back into the episodes again. So definitely make sure you're on the lookout for these. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit subscribe, follow whatever the option is on the platform, like, share it out as well. And like Coach Dante, if you're on here watching, get in the chat. I'll pull it up, interact that way. Really appreciate that. But thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you have a great day. Be safe. God bless. I'll catch you on the next stream. It'll probably be maybe tomorrow. Might do another episode tomorrow, so look out for that. But thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day. I'll see you later. All right.